The board meeting that changed everything. Why Ruben Amorim finally ditched his 3-4-3 formation. Welcome back to United Daily Updates, your most trusted source for all things Manchester United. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we bring you the latest news, exclusive insights, and honest analysis about our beloved club. We're your reliable community for everything United, and today we're diving into one of the most important tactical decisions of Ruben Amorim's tenure. The meeting that could save Amorim's job. Picture this scene. It's a cold Wednesday morning at Carrington Training Ground. The atmosphere is thick with tension. Ruben Amorim walks into the main conference room knowing his job might depend on what happens in the next hour. Sitting around that table are the most powerful people at Manchester United. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the man with the money. Omar Barada, the chief executive who makes the big decisions. Dan Ashworth, the sporting director with folders full of statistics. Jason Wilcox, the technical director with video evidence of everything that's gone wrong. What happened in that room would change the entire direction of Manchester United's season. After weeks of poor results and a shocking 13th place position in the Premier League table, something had to give. The question was simple. Would Amorim adapt his beloved 3-4-3 formation, or would he lose his job defending it? By the time that meeting ended, everything had changed. Amorim had agreed to switch to a 4-3-3 formation, abandoning the tactical system that had made him famous at Sporting CP. But how did we get to this point? And what does it mean for United's future? Why the 3-4-3 was failing so badly? Let's be honest about what we've all been watching this season. The 3-4-3 formation that Amorim brought from Sporting CP has been a disaster at Manchester United. But why has a system that worked so well in Portugal failed so miserably in England? The numbers don't lie, and they make for painful reading. In 10 Premier League games with the 3-4-3 formation, United managed just 2 wins. 2 wins. That's relegation form for any Premier League club, let alone Manchester United. We've been conceding nearly 2 goals per game, and our defensive shape has looked more like Swiss cheese than a Premier League backline. Think about what you've seen in recent matches. Brighton walked through our defense like it wasn't there. Teams are finding massive spaces down the flanks where our wingbacks should be. When we lose the ball, there are huge gaps everywhere for opponents to exploit. It's been painful to watch as a United fan. The problem isn't necessarily with Amorim's tactical knowledge. The issue is that the 3-4-3 system requires very specific types of players to work effectively. Players that, frankly, we don't have in our current squad. You can't just take players who have spent their careers in different systems and expect them to master a complex formation overnight. Look at our wingbacks. Players like Diogo Dalot and Luke Shaw are good footballers, but they're not natural wingbacks. They're either fullbacks who like to attack or wingers who can defend a bit. The wing-back position demands something different. You need players who can cover the entire flank for 90 minutes, defending like a fullback and attacking like a winger. It's one of the most demanding positions in modern football. The board finally says enough is enough. So what exactly happened in that crucial board meeting? According to our sources, the atmosphere was serious from the moment Amorim walked through the door. This wasn't a friendly chat about tactics. This was a crisis meeting about the future direction of the club. Omar Barada started the conversation by laying out the brutal statistics. 2 wins in 10 Premier League games. An average of 1.8 goals conceded per match. Sitting 13th in the table with more losses than wins. For a club that expects to compete for trophies, these numbers are simply unacceptable. Dan Ashworth came prepared with detailed tactical analysis. He had charts showing United's defensive vulnerabilities. Video clips highlighting how teams were exploiting the gaps in the 3-4-3 system. Statistical comparisons with the most successful Premier League teams, who were all using variations of 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 formations. But here's what made this meeting different from previous discussions. The board wasn't just criticizing Amorim's tactics. They came with a solution. They had done their homework and identified exactly how a 4-3-3 formation would better suit United's current players. Jason Wilcox showed video evidence of how Bruno Fernandes looked uncomfortable in the current system. How Marcus Rashford was wasted playing as a wingback when his best position is clearly as a wide forward cutting inside. How the centre-backs looked lost trying to cover the spaces left by the wingbacks. The moment Amorim realized he had to change. Can you imagine being in Amorim's position during that meeting? Here's a manager who built his entire reputation on the 3-4-3 formation. It's what made him successful at Sporting CP. It's why Manchester United hired him in the first place. Now he's being told that his signature system doesn't work in the Premier League. At first, Amorim tried to defend his approach. He asked for more time to work with the players. He argued that the system had been successful before and could be successful again. But the board had facts and figures that were impossible to ignore. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who had been quiet for most of the meeting, finally spoke up. He reminded Amorim that even Sir Alex Ferguson changed formations throughout his career based on the players he had available. Great managers adapt to their circumstances rather than forcing their circumstances to adapt to them. That comparison to Ferguson was the moment everything changed. Just days earlier, Ferguson had told Amorim to stay positive before the Brighton match. Maybe staying positive didn't mean stubbornly sticking to a failing system. Maybe it meant being smart enough to adapt and evolve. You could see the realization dawning on Amorim's face. His pride in his tactical system was less important than the success of Manchester United. The club comes first, always. If changing formation gave United the best chance of climbing the table and competing for trophies, then that's what had to happen. How the 4-3-3 will transform United's play. So what exactly will change when United switches to the 4-3-3 formation? The differences might seem small on paper, but they could be huge for how the team performs on the pitch. Think about Bruno Fernandes first. In the 3-4-3 system, he's been playing in a more advanced role, almost as a second striker. It's not his natural position, and you can see how uncomfortable he looks sometimes. In a 4-3-3, Bruno will play as the advanced central midfielder, sitting behind the front three. This is where he's most dangerous, where he can pick up the ball in space and thread those killer passes we know he's capable of. Marcus Rashford will move from wing-back to left winger, where he can focus on what he does best, running at defenders and cutting inside onto his right foot. No more tracking back to defend corners or worrying about overlapping runs from the opposition right-back. He can concentrate on scoring goals and creating chances. The defensive benefits could be even more important. Instead of 3 centre-backs trying to cover the entire width of the pitch, we'll have 4 defenders in more traditional positions. The full-backs can still attack when we have possession, but they won't push as high as the wing-backs did in the 3-4-3 system. This should give us much better defensive balance. Casemiro will anchor the midfield, providing the defensive stability that's been missing all season. With 2 other central midfielders alongside him, he won't be isolated when teams counterattack. The midfield should be much more compact and harder to play through. The players' reactions to the big change. How do you think the United players reacted when Amorim told them about the formation change? According to our sources, the response was mixed but generally positive. Bruno Fernandes was reportedly delighted about playing in his preferred position. He's never looked completely comfortable in the 3-4-3 system, often drifting into areas where he gets in the way of other players. In a 4-3-3, he'll have the freedom to roam and create from deeper positions. Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho were also pleased about the switch. Both players are much more effective as wide forwards than as wingbacks with defensive responsibilities. They'll be able to focus on what they do best, running at defenders and creating chances. The centre-backs were probably the happiest of all. Players like Harry Maguire, Rafael Varane, and Lisandro Martinez have spent their entire careers playing in back fours. The 3-at-the-back system forced them into unfamiliar roles, covering spaces they weren't used to defending. But not everyone was immediately convinced. Luke Shaw, who had been working hard to adapt to the wing-back role, was concerned about all the work he'd put into learning the current system. Amorim had to reassure him that nothing they'd worked on was wasted, and that the new formation would actually suit his strengths better. What this means for United's transfer strategy. Here's something that might not be obvious to casual fans. Changing formation doesn't just affect the current squad. It completely changes United's transfer strategy for the January window and beyond. Under the 3-4-3 system, United would have needed to sign specialist wingbacks, players comfortable defending and attacking in equal measure. These players are rare and expensive. Think of players like Achraf Hakimi or Jeremy Frimpong. World-class wingbacks can cost £60 million or more. With a 4-3-3 formation, United can look for more traditional players. They need fullbacks who can defend first and attack second. They need central midfielders who can control the tempo of games. These players are more common and generally less expensive than specialist wingbacks. The formation change also affects which players United might sell. Some of the current squad members who don't fit the 4-3-3 system could be moved on to make room for players who do. This could free up wages and transfer funds for more suitable additions. Most importantly, the new formation plays to the strengths of United's best players. Instead of asking Bruno Fernandes to adapt to an unfamiliar role or forcing Rashford to become a wingback, the 4-3-3 allows these players to do what they do best. The risks of changing formation mid-season. But let's not pretend this tactical switch is guaranteed to work. Changing formation in the middle of a season comes with serious risks that every United fan should understand. First, there's the learning curve. Players have spent months working on the 3-4-3 system. The positioning, the pressing triggers, the passing patterns, all of this has to be relearned. It takes time for players to feel comfortable in new roles, and time is something United doesn't have much of. There's also the psychological aspect to consider. Some players might see the formation change as an admission that the previous approach was wrong. This could affect confidence and team morale, especially if results don't improve immediately. The biggest risk is that changing formation doesn't address all of United's problems. Poor finishing, individual defensive errors, and lack of intensity in big moments. These issues exist regardless of tactical setup. If the same problems persist in the new formation, Amorim will be out of excuses. There's also the possibility that some players who looked good in the 3-4-3 system might struggle in the new setup. Football is unpredictable, and sometimes tactical changes have unintended consequences. How this compares to other successful Premier League teams. One of the strongest arguments for switching to 4-3-3 is looking at what actually works in the Premier League. The most successful teams in England right now are all using variations of this formation. Manchester City under Pep Guardiola have dominated English football with a 4-3-3 system. Their approach might be more complex than what United will implement, but the basic structure is the same: 4 defenders, 3 central midfielders, and 3 forwards. Arsenal's resurgence under Mikel Arteta has been built on a solid 4-3-3 foundation. They've shown how this formation can provide defensive stability while still creating plenty of attacking opportunities. Even Liverpool, who sometimes play with wing-backs, revert to a 4-3-3 shape when they need better defensive balance. It's clearly a formation that works in the intensity and physicality of Premier League football. Brighton, the team that just hammered United 3-1, also use a variation of 4-3-3. They showed United exactly how effective this system can be when implemented properly. If Brighton can make it work with their budget and resources, there's no reason United can't do the same with better players. The pressure on Amorim to get it right. Make no mistake about it, this formation change represents a make-or-break moment for Ruben Amorim's Manchester United career. The board has given him what he needs to succeed. They've identified the tactical approach that suits the current squad. Now it's up to him to make it work. The pressure is enormous. If United's results don't improve with the new formation, Amorim will be out of excuses. He can't blame the system anymore. He can't say the players don't suit his approach. The 4-3-3 formation has been chosen specifically because it should get the best out of the current squad. This puts Amorim in an interesting position psychologically. On one hand, he's had to abandon the tactical approach that made him famous. That can't be easy for any manager's ego. On the other hand, he now has a system that should make his players more comfortable and confident. The fans will be watching closely to see how quickly the team adapts to the new formation. In modern football, patience is limited. If United lose their next few matches while implementing the 4-3-3 system, the pressure will become unbearable. But if the formation change works, if United start winning games and climbing the table, Amorim could be hailed as a tactical genius who was willing to adapt for the good of the club. Sometimes the best decisions are the hardest ones to make. What United fans should expect next. So what should you expect as a United fan when this new formation is implemented? Don't expect miracles overnight, but there are some positive signs you should look for in the coming matches. Watch Bruno Fernandes first. If he looks more comfortable in his new central midfield role, picking up the ball in space and spraying passes around the pitch, that's a good sign. He should have more touches of the ball and more opportunities to influence the game. Pay attention to the defensive shape when United don't have possession. The back four should look more compact than the back three did. There should be fewer gaps for opponents to exploit down the flanks. Look at how Rashford and Garnacho perform in their new wide forward roles. They should have more freedom to attack, fewer defensive responsibilities, and more chances to get into goal-scoring positions. Most importantly, watch the team's confidence levels. If players look more comfortable in their positions, if they're making quicker decisions and moving the ball faster, these are signs that the formation change is working. Don't expect perfect performances immediately. It will take time for the team to gel in the new system. But you should see signs of improvement within a few matches if the change is going to be successful. The long-term vision. Beyond the immediate need to improve results, this formation change represents a longer-term vision for Manchester United's playing style. The 4-3-3 system is more sustainable than the 3-4-3 approach, both in terms of player recruitment and tactical flexibility. With a 4-3-3 formation, United can play different styles depending on the opposition. Against weaker teams, the fullbacks can push higher to provide width in attack. Against stronger opponents, they can sit deeper to provide extra defensive stability. The formation also offers flexibility in terms of player rotation. In a 3-4-3 system, losing a key wingback could disrupt the entire tactical setup. In a 4-3-3, there are more options for covering different positions without changing the basic structure. This tactical switch could also influence United's academy development. Young players coming through the system can be coached in the 4-3-3 formation from an early age, making it easier to integrate them into the first team when they're ready. The manager's reputation on the line. For Ruben Amorim personally, agreeing to change formation represents both a risk and an opportunity. His reputation as a tactical innovator was built on the success of his 3-4-3 system at Sporting CP. Abandoning that approach could be seen as an admission of failure. But great managers are remembered for their ability to adapt and evolve. Sir Alex Ferguson used different formations throughout his career at Manchester United. Pep Guardiola has tweaked his tactical approach at every club he's managed. The best coaches are flexible enough to change when circumstances demand it. If the 4-3-3 formation leads to improved results, Amorim will be praised for his pragmatism and willingness to put the club's needs ahead of his own tactical preferences. This could actually enhance his reputation rather than diminish it. However, if the formation change doesn't work, if United continue to struggle despite having a system that supposedly suits the players better, then Amorim's position will become untenable very quickly. What this means for individual players. Let's talk about how this formation change affects some of United's key players on an individual level, because that's what will ultimately determine whether this tactical switch is successful. Bruno Fernandes is probably the biggest winner from this change. He's looked lost at times in the 3-4-3 system, often getting in the way of other players or being asked to track back too much. In a 4-3-3, he can focus on what he does best, creating chances and scoring goals from midfield. Marcus Rashford should also benefit hugely. Instead of being asked to defend as a wing-back, he can concentrate on attacking from the left wing. This is where he's most dangerous, cutting inside onto his right foot and getting into goal-scoring positions. The centre-backs, Maguire, Martinez, and De Ligt, should look much more comfortable in a traditional back four. They've all played this way for most of their careers, and the positioning should feel more natural. Casemiro gets to play his preferred role as a defensive midfielder, breaking up play and distributing the ball to more creative players. He won't be as isolated as he has been in some matches this season. But what about the players who might struggle with the change? Some of the squad members who had adapted to the 3-4-3 system might find it harder to adjust again. Squad rotation could become more difficult if certain players don't fit the new formation. The fan perspective, hope or skepticism. How are United fans reacting to news of this formation change? The response has been mixed, which is probably what you'd expect given the rollercoaster of emotions this season has provided. Some fans are relieved that changes are being made. They've watched the 3-4-3 system fail week after week, and they're glad the manager is finally willing to try something different. These fans see the formation change as a sign that Amorim is learning and adapting. Other fans are more skeptical. They worry that changing formation mid-season shows a lack of conviction in the original plan. They're concerned that if the 4-3-3 doesn't work immediately, the team will be back to square one with even less time to implement another system. There's also a group of fans who think the formation was never really the problem. They believe United's issues are more about individual player quality, fitness levels, and mental strength. These fans worry that changing tactics won't solve the underlying problems. But here's what most United fans can agree on: something had to change. The current approach wasn't working, and continuing down the same path would have led to even worse results. At least the formation change shows that the club is willing to adapt when things aren't going well. The media and pundit reactions. The football media and pundit community has been generally positive about United's decision to change formation. Most experts have been critical of the 3-4-3 system all season, pointing out how it doesn't suit the current squad. Former United players turned pundits have been particularly supportive. They understand the pressure of playing for the club and recognize that getting the tactics right is crucial for player confidence. Many of them have praised Amorim for being willing to adapt rather than stubbornly sticking to a failing system. Some tactical analysts have pointed out that the formation change should have happened sooner. They've been writing about United's tactical problems for weeks, and they see this switch as an obvious solution that was delayed too long. However, there are also critics who question whether one formation change can solve all of United's problems. They argue that the issues run deeper than tactics and that new players and improved fitness levels are more important than switching from 3-4-3 to 4-3-3. The timing. Why now? You might be wondering why this formation change is happening now, in the middle of the season, rather than at the beginning or during a break between competitions. The timing tells us a lot about how serious United's situation has become. The decision to change formation mid-season suggests that the board couldn't wait any longer. Results have been so poor that immediate action was required, even if it disrupts the team's preparation and training routines. There's also the psychological aspect to consider. Making a big tactical change now sends a message to players, fans, and media that the club is taking action to address the problems. Sometimes the perception of change is almost as important as the actual change itself. The January transfer window provides another reason for the timing. If United are going to sign new players, it makes sense to implement the formation those players will be expected to play in. Starting the tactical transition now gives everyone time to adapt before new additions arrive. Comparisons to other manager changes. This situation reminds many football fans of other managers who have had to change their tactical approach to survive at big clubs. It's actually more common than you might think for successful managers to adapt their systems based on available players and circumstances. Pep Guardiola changed his approach significantly when he moved from Barcelona to Bayern Munich, and then again when he joined Manchester City. Each time, he adapted his core philosophy to suit different leagues, different players, and different challenges. Jurgen Klopp evolved his tactics at Liverpool over several seasons, moving from a more chaotic pressing style to a more controlled approach as his players matured and new additions were made to the squad. Even within their same clubs, successful managers often change formations based on available players. Injuries, suspensions, and form issues can all require tactical adjustments. The key difference in Amorim's case is the speed of the change and the pressure under which it's being made. Most tactical evolutions happen gradually over months or seasons. Amorim is being forced to make a dramatic change in a matter of weeks. What success looks like. So how will we know if this formation change has been successful? What should United fans be looking for in the coming weeks and months? The most obvious measure is results. United need to start winning more games and climbing the Premier League table. If they can string together a few victories and move away from the relegation zone, that would be a clear sign that the tactical change is working. But results alone don't tell the whole story. The way United play is just as important as the points they collect. Fans should look for better defensive organisation, fewer individual errors, and more fluid attacking play. Individual player performances will also be crucial. If Bruno Fernandes starts controlling games from his new central midfield position, if Rashford begins scoring regularly from the left wing, if the defense looks more solid, these would all be positive signs. Team confidence is another important factor to watch. If players look more comfortable in their positions, if they're making quicker decisions and playing with more intensity, it suggests the formation change is having the desired psychological effect. The road ahead. As this tactical revolution begins at Manchester United, there are still many questions that need to be answered. Will the players adapt quickly to their new roles? Will the formation change translate to better results on the pitch? Can Amorim prove that he's the right manager to lead United back to success? The next few weeks will be crucial for everyone involved. The board has backed Amorim by agreeing to the formation change, but they'll expect to see immediate improvements. The players have a chance to show their true abilities in a system that should suit them better, but they need to deliver performances that match the expectations. For United fans, this represents a new chapter in what has been a frustrating season. The formation change offers hope that things can get better, but it also raises the stakes for everyone involved. If this tactical switch doesn't work, it's hard to see where United go from here. What we do know is that something had to change. The 3-4-3 formation clearly wasn't working with the current squad, and continuing with the same approach would have led to even worse results. At least now there's a plan, a system that should theoretically get the best out of United's best players. The beautiful thing about football is that anything can happen once those players cross the white line. Formations and tactics are important, but ultimately it comes down to how the players perform when it matters most. United fans can only hope that this tactical change gives their team the best possible chance of success. Whether this formation switch will be remembered as the moment United's season turned around, or as another failed experiment in a disappointing campaign, only time will tell. But one thing is certain, it represents the biggest tactical gamble of Ruben Amorim's career so far. The stage is set, the formation is changed, and now it's time to see if this tactical revolution can save Manchester United's season. As always, the players will have the final word on whether this bold decision pays off. That's our deep dive into United's formation change here at United Daily Updates. What do you think about Amorim's decision to switch to 4-3-3? Do you believe this tactical change can turn our season around? Let us know in the comments below and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more exclusive United content and analysis. We're all in this journey together as United fans, and your thoughts matter to our community. Keep the faith, and we'll see you in the next update.